All right, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, as always, I'd like to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahawashi, Bahashem, Racha HaKodash, double honors unto the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well. Salutations to you, sincere, hopeful, elect Akim, that push the word of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahawashi, in spirit and in truth. All right. Ma'ah, Arabai, a lot, that is to say 144,000 in the Lashawan Kodash, which is what we are striving to be a part of. Getting into this lesson, I want to get into what unemployment rate. All right. Doing some reading in the book of Kings, when you read about King Solomon's government, he was so wise, that he pretty much had everyone employed. All right. Starting with Israel. All right. And then, that wisdom, spread throughout, that region of the world at that time. All right. Because his rulership, King Solomon's rulership, was from the Euphrates River, uh, which is the northern part of the Euphrates River is located in Syria. All right. So from that region to the border of Egypt, all right, King Solomon had rule of that. All right, down to Palestine or Gaza. All right, and then all the way west to the border of Egypt. All right, so he had that region, um, stable. All right, and so pretty much everybody was employed. Everyone had some type of employment. All right, but that just goes to show that his kingdom was a righteous kingdom. All right, it's not like Esau's kingdom today, in which you see high unemployment numbers. All right, you see, um, and when a kingdom doesn't have employment, when the people are not employed, that shows you the level that kingdom has, you know, reached. All right, that level of decay, that kingdom, that infrastructure, that government has reached. All right, and Babylon the Great has reached, you know, not an all time low, because it's gonna get worse, but it's approaching that point. But nevertheless, this is Proverbs 29:2. It says, "When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice, but when the wicked bear the rule, the people mourn." Okay, so during the time of King Solomon's rule, there was rejoicing first and foremost for the Israelites. Okay, and in the kingdom of heaven under Yahawashi, by Hamalakwath, all right, in the kingdom, um, these heathen will be gainfully employed. Okay, so let me read this here in Deuteronomy 4, and I'm going to start at verse 1. It says, "Now therefore hearken, O Israel, unto the statutes and unto the judgments which I therefore," you know what, I'm going to read this in the NLT. It says, Moses urges Israel to obey. All right, Deuteronomy 4:1 in the NLT. It says, now Israel, listen carefully to these decrees and regulations that I am about to teach you. Obey them so that you may live, so that, so you may enter and occupy the land that Yahweh, the power of your ancestors, the God of your ancestors, is giving you. Do not add to or subtract from these commands I am giving you. Just obey the commands of the Lord Yahweh, your power, that I am giving you. You saw for yourselves what the Lord Yahweh did to you at Baal Peor. Therefore, the Lord Yahweh, your power, destroyed everyone who had worshipped Baal, the power of Peor. Okay, so the Heavenly Father doesn't take lightly Israelites worshiping, heathen gods, okay, deities. It says, "But all of you who were faithful to the Lord Yahweh, your power, are still alive today, every one of you. Look, I now teach you these decrees and regulations, just as the Lord Yahweh, my power, commanded me. All right, and another thing too, coming out of ancient Egypt, we roamed around in the desert. The nation of Israel roamed around in the desert for a span of 40 years. And, that was the time when the Heavenly Father was pretty much getting that idol worship out of Israel. All right. And the way that it had to happen was that everyone perished in the wilderness minus Joshua and Caleb. Okay. Because Joshua and Caleb, when they entered into the land of Israel, they didn't bring any gods or deities from these other heathen nations, in particular from ancient Egypt. Okay, they came into the land of Israel worshiping Yahawashi, Yahawashi, or Yahweh at that time, in Him only. Okay, so verse 5, midway through verse 5, it says, "So that you may obey them in the land you are about to enter and occupy. Obey them completely, and you will display your wisdom and intelligence among the surrounding nations." Okay, so that's the point. All right, by obeying the customs of Yahweh Shem Yahushua, which are, practical customs. All right, they're practical. Um, you know, they're they're simple and not in a bad way. It's not grievous to follow Yahweh Shem Yahushua. Okay, but or should I say, and with that the law will have you with a man that's actually exercised in the law, that displays the law through his actions, shows the wisdom contained in the scriptures amongst these heathen currently. All right. Um and the like I mentioned earlier in the start of the lesson, King Solomon, that wisdom he had displayed, it was recognized by all the nations, around King Solomon at that time. It says, when they hear all these decrees, they will exclaim, "How wise and prudent are the people of this nation." All right, talking about the Israelites. Okay, the nation of Israel. Um, during the time of King Solomon, you had everybody praising Israel. Okay, because of its status. Everybody was on point. Well, it wasn't the kingdom of heaven, but our people were at a high, pretty much the highest standard, that we had ever been, being that we had that 40 years of peace under King Solomon's rule. Because there was order, there was structure. Okay, it wasn't like things are now, or at other times during Israel's history, in which his Israel was getting jacked up because of our nation worshiping false gods, false idols. All right, idols. Um, verse 7, it says, "For what great nation has the Most High as near to him as the Lord Yahweh? Our power is near to us whenever we call on him." Okay, and what great nation has decrees and regulations as righteous and fair as this body of instructions that I am giving you today. Okay, it says but watch out, be careful, never to forget what you yourself have seen. Do not let these memories escape from your mind as long as you live, and be sure to pass them on to your children and grandchildren. Okay, and it continues on, but the point being, the law, all right, set us apart from these other nations, and that was in itself wisdom that was noticeable, to all the nations round about us, to where, King Solomon was able to, leverage that, in righteousness, to benefit the kingdom of heaven. Okay, so I'll get more into that here coming up. But what I want to do is read through 1 Kings 4 and 1 Kings 5. All right, I'm gonna read this in the NLT. So, let me drink some water real quick. All right, 1 Kings 4, and I might jump around in this chapter, but getting into King Solomon's government, because King Solomon had a government. Okay, he designated certain certain brothers, certain men of the Lord over certain positions. Okay, so it says verse 1 in the NLT, it says first Kings 4 and 1, it says, King Solomon now ruled over all Israel, and these are his high officials. All right, and it's a lot of names. So it says Azariah, son of Zadok, was the priest. Elihoreph and Ahijah, the sons of Shisha, were court secretaries. Jehoshaphat, son of Ahilud, was the royal historian. Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, was commander of the army. Zadok and Abiathar were priests. Zariah, son of Nathan, was in charge of the district governors. All right, Zabud, son of Nathan, a priest, was a trusted advisor to the king. Ahishar was manager of the palace property. Adanaram, son of Abda, was in charge of the labor force. Okay, so King Solomon had a labor force. All right, same way you got a union in this day and age, this world. Okay, King Solomon had a labor force. All right, it says Solomon also had 12 district governors who were over all Israel. They were responsible for providing food for the king's household. Each of them arranged provisions for 1 month of the year. Okay, so the king's household, King Solomon's household, pretty much had food provided to them from 12 different governors. All right, which depend on the I'm speculating through the spirit, doing some spiritual extrapolation. I would believe that at the first of the month being the new moon, okay, you would have each one of these governors come with provisions, to give to the king for that month, you know. And then on the next new moon, the next governor will come, so on and so forth. All right. It says, these are the names of the 12 governors: Ben-Hur in the hill country of Ephraim, Ben-Deker in Makaz, Sha'alabim, Beth Shemesh, and Elon Beth Hanan. All right. Ben Hesed in Aruboth, including Soka, and all the land of Hefer. Ben Abinadab in all of Naphoth Dor. He was married to Taphath, one of Solomon's daughters. Okay, Salakia with these names, man. It says Baana, son of Ahilud, and Tanakh and Megiddo, all of Beth Shan, near Zarethan, below Jezreel, and all the territory of Beth Shan to Abel Meholah, and over uh, to Jokmeam. It says Ben Geber in Ramoth Gilead. All right, and now this is just going once again going into these different governors and their territories. Okay, and including the towns of Jair, named for Jair of the tribe of Manasseh, in Gilead, and in uh, Argob, in and in the Argob region of Bashan, including 60 large fortified towns with bronze bars on their gates. Ahinadab, son of Edo, in Mahanaim, Ahai Maaz in Naphtali. He was married to Bashemoth, another of Solomon's daughters. Okay, so some of these governors, were married to King Solomon's daughters. All right. It says Baana, son of Hashai, in Asher, and in Elath, Jehoshaphat, son of uh, Parua, in Issachar, Shammai, son of Elah, in Benjamin, Geber, son of Uri, in the land of Gilead, including the territories of King Sihon of the Amorites and King Og of Bashan. There was also one governor over the land of Judah. All right. So, so like it with those names, man, with, trying to actually, enunciate them correctly. All right. Versus just reading them and, whatever you want it to sound like, that's what it sounds like, but actually trying to pronounce them. All right. So verse 20, it says, the people of Judah and Israel were as numerous as the sand of the seashore. They were very contented with plenty to eat and drink. All right. It wasn't like it is now. All right. People are not content with food and drink. All right. People are not contented with food and drink. You got people, Israelites all throughout the U.S. that depend on food stamps. They depend on Section 8. They depend on handouts. And that's because, this economy is failing. Okay. But under King Solomon, you didn't have that. All right, verse 21, Solomon ruled over all the kingdoms from the Euphrates River in the north to the land of the Philistines at the border and the border of Egypt in the south. Okay. Once again, like I mentioned at the start of the video, King Solomon's, rulership was a vast rulership at that point in time. All right. Now, Yahawashi's rulership is going to be that and some. All right. That and some. Because King Solomon is Yahawashi in the reincarnation. All right. For those who can receive it. It says, the conquered peoples of those lands sent tribute money to Solomon and continue to serve him throughout his lifetime. The daily food requirements for Solomon's palace were 150 bushels of choice flour and 300 bushels of meal, also 10 oxen from the fattening pens, 20 pasture-fed cattle, 100 sheep or goats, as well as deer, gazelles, roe deer, and choice poultry. Solomon's dominion extended over all the kingdoms west of the Euphrates River to Tifsha to Gaza, and there was peace in all his borders. Okay, so once again, it illustrated, his kingdom, how vast it was, and it emphasizes, also the peace that we as Israel experienced under Um, King Solomon. All right. Verse 25 it says, during the lifetime of Solomon, all of Judah and Israel lived in peace and safety, and from Dan in the north to Beersheba in the south, each family had its own home and garden. All right, you don't have that today, man. All right, you don't have each family having their own garden in Babylon the Great. All right, which a garden. If you have a garden, you can you got medicine. Okay, if you have a garden, you have medicine, and Esau knows that. Okay, I believe it was Socrates that said, "Let thy food be thy medicine, and thy medicine thy food." Okay. Um. Let's see what this says. Here in Sirach 38. Um. I'm gonna start at 1. It says, "Honor a physician with the honor due unto him for the uses which ye may have of him, for the Lord hath created him." All right. And the word physician means to make whole, and that's what a physician in the ancient world would actually do, especially an Israelite physician, being that they know the herbs. All right, it's going to tell you in the book, the book of Kings, we're going to get to it, where the Heavenly Father blessed King Solomon with a wide knowledge of trees, of everything, you know, and so that pretty much was contagious. All right, that was contagious. All that information was written down and studied. Okay, so that made those around King Solomon, you know wiser. All right, which that just pretty much trickled down to the nation. Okay, it says verse 2, it says, "For of the Most High cometh healing, and he shall receive honor of the king. The skill of the physician shall lift up his head, and in the sight of great men he shall be in admiration. The Lord hath created medicines out of the earth, and he that is wise will not abhor them." Okay, so the Heavenly Father created medicines out of the earth. All right, and herbs can be grown, right in your backyard. If you got a garden, fruits, vegetables. All right, and those is what you use to heal yourself. Okay, and that can be, once again, right in the garden, right in your backyard. Okay, it says the Lord hath created medicines out of the earth, and he that is wise will not abhor them. Um, let me see. That's pretty much the point. There's more to it, but I'm gonna jump back to this 1 Kings 4, and I'm gonna read verse 25 again. It says, "During the lifetime of Solomon, all of Judah and Israel lived in peace and safety, and from Dan to the north, Dan in the north to Beersheba in the south, each family, all right, each family amongst all the nation of Israel, each family had its own home and garden." Okay, if you got your own home and garden, that's got to be tended to. Now, whether you doing it or you got some servants that's doing it, hey, everybody's employed. Everybody got something to do. All right, there's some work to be done. All right, you got a home and garden that you own. That's yours. That's your property. All right, it's gonna be some maintenance done here and there. All right, you're gonna have cattle that you're gonna take care of. All right, you're gonna have a garden that you got to tend to. All right, verse 26, it says, "Solomon had 4,000 stalls for his chariot horses, and he had 12,000 horses. The district governors faithfully provided food for King Solomon and his court. Each made sure nothing was lacking during the month assigned to him." All right. They also brought the necessary barley and straw for the royal horses in the stables. Okay. And the Most High gave very great wisdom and understanding and knowledge and vast as vast as the sands of the seashore. And the Most High gave Solomon very vast. Salaki. The Most High gave Solomon very great wisdom and understanding and knowledge as vast as the sands of the seashore. In fact, his wisdom exceeded that of all the wise men of the East and the wise men of Egypt. Okay? Now, that's saying something, okay? All the wise men of the East or the West, none of them was on King Solomon's level, all right? It says he was wiser than anyone else, including Ethan the Ezahite and the son of Miho, Heman, Calco, and Darda. His fame spread throughout all the surrounding nations. He composed some 3,000 proverbs and wrote 1,005 books. Okay, so we're gonna know what all that is in the kingdom. All right, we're gonna understand and know all this. These 3,000 proverbs that King Solomon wrote, and these 1,005 songs that he wrote. All right, we're gonna get all that back in the kingdom. It says he could speak. Salaki. He could speak with authority about all kinds of plants. All right, that's one of the things I was alluding to earlier. All right, he had authority about all kinds of plants. He can speak on these things with knowledge, with facts. All right, and that was a blessing given to him from Yahawashi. All right, it says from the great cedar of Lebanon to the tiny hyssop that grows from cracks in a wall. He could also speak about animals, birds, small creatures, and fish. And kings from every nation sent their ambassadors to listen to the wisdom of Solomon. All right, so you had ambassadors sent from kingdoms around Israel to hear King Solomon pretty much drop wisdom. Okay. So let me see. I think I'm gonna cut this into two parts. All right, because I actually do want to get into the 5th chapter, which I had it queued up, but it's not popping up. It didn't pop up. Actually, let me keep going. I'm gonna read this 5th chapter in the NLT as well. It says King Hiram of Tyre. All right, now once again, just to recap, chapter 4 was going into how Israel was employed. All right, you had Israel that was doing good. There's peace amongst all the Israelites. In every home, every family had a house and a garden. All right, now the economy of Israel being stable at that time made those economies around Israel stable, or it contributed to their unemployment rate being low, or it contributed to knocking down the unemployment rate numbers. All right, and not to say that's something a statistic that was necessarily kept at that point in time. Unemployment rate is blah 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 percent. Who knows if those numbers was deliberately kept at that time, but the stability of Israel was contagious. All right. So, 1 Kings 5:1, it says, King Hiram of Tyre had always been a loyal friend of David. When Hiram learned that David's son Solomon was the new king of Israel, he sent ambassadors to congratulate him. Then Solomon sent this message back to Hiram. all right, which Hiram was a Hamite. It says, you know that my father David was not able to build a temple to honor the name of the Lord Yahweh his power because of the many wars waged against him by surrounding nations. He could not build until the Lord Yahweh gave him victory over all his enemies. But now the Lord Yahweh my power has given me peace on every side. I have no enemies and all is well. So I am planning to build a temple to honor the name of the Lord Yahweh my power, just as he had instructed my father David. For the Lord Yahweh told him, your son, whom I will place on your throne, will build the temple to honor my name. Therefore, please command that cedars from Lebanon be cut for me. Let my men work alongside yours, and I will pay your men whatever wages you ask. As you know, there is no one among us who can cut timber like you Zidonians. All right. So this contract or agreement that they're about to enter into, it employs not only Zidonians, because they're experts at building. Hiram was an expert building. All right, he was a mason. All right, pretty much a builder. The Lord gave him that knowledge on how to build. Okay, so not only did this, the building of the temple employ, the Hamites, but it also employed Israel. Okay, because you had, Solomon's men working alongside, the Zidonians. Now, just because the Zidonians was employed to help build the temple, all right, being that materials was coming from Zidon, all right, the cedars of Lebanon, does not mean that they are partakers in any type of salvation. All right, the actual Hamites, those Zidonians, being Hamites. Okay, and in the kingdom of heaven, they're gonna be employed to build again. All right, the heathen are slaves, man. All right, and slaves got to be put to labor. They got to be put to work. So they got work to do. All right, so verse 7, it says, when Hiram received Solomon's message, he was very pleased and said, praise the Lord Yahweh today for giving David a wise son to be king of the great nation of Israel. Then he sent this reply to Solomon, I have received your message, and I will supply all the cedar and cypress timber you need. My servants will bring the logs from Lebanon, from the Lebanon mountains and the Mediterranean Sea, to the Mediterranean Sea, and make them into rafts and float them along the coast to whatever place you choose. All right, which that's smart. All right, to move those logs via maritime, being that the coast of Israel is connected with the coast of Lebanon, versus cutting them out of the mountains. Then you gotta, the cedars, you gotta cut them out the mountains, and then transport them via land across crazy terrains, different terrains. It'd be easier just to get them to the coast and let the water, you know, pretty much do the hard work, and then whatever location, on the coast of Israel was chosen. All right, from there they go inland to the location where the building's going to be done. All right, to where the temple is in Jerusalem. All right, so that's ingenuity and engineering. It says, then midway through verse 9, it says, then we will break the rafts apart so you can carry the logs away. You can pay me by supplying me with food for my household. So Hiram supplied as much cedar and cypress timber as Solomon desired. In return, Solomon sent him an annual payment of 100,000 bushels of wheat for his household and 110,000 gallons of pure olive oil. Man, that's a lot. It says, so the Lord Yahweh gave wisdom to Solomon, just as he had promised, and Hiram and Solomon made a formal alliance of peace. Okay? It says, then King Solomon conscripted a labor force. All right, so King Solomon had a labor force. All right, a conscripted labor force. All right, of 30,000 men from all Israel. He sent them to Lebanon in shifts, 10,000 every month, so that each man could be 1 month in Lebanon and 2 months at home. Adoniram was in charge of this labor force. Solomon also had 70,000 common laborers, 80,000 quarry workers, in the hill country, and 3,600 foremen to supervise the work. At the king's command, they quarried large blocks of high quality stone and shaped them to make the foundation of the temple. Men from the city of Gibal helped Solomon and Hiram's builders prepare the timber and stone for the temple. All right, so now you see how that wisdom that Solomon had not only had Israelites employed, but it also had some of the Zidonians, Hamites employed. Okay, which when you look at what America is experiencing, being that Donald Trump, in the Trump administration, the U.S. government pretty much has put Babylon the Great has put tariffs on all these nations, not only nations that are across the pond or the other end of the world, all right, the Eastern Hemisphere, its own neighbors, Canada, as an example, America slapped them with tariffs, and they're a country that borders Babylon to the north. Okay, so that's a country that's right next door to America that got hit with tariffs, and those tariffs are affecting work in both countries. Okay, both countries is losing out on money because of those tariffs. All right, and with the route this country is going, all right, its posture and its attitude toward even its allies near and far, um it's causing America to be pretty much put on an island, all right, a economic island, to where it's causing this country to crumble and collapse at a high rate of speed, being that these other nations don't want to do any type of business or deals, or trade with America as they once did in the past. All right, these countries and companies and whatnot, are leery of doing business with America. Okay. Um. Now, I want to jump into Ezekiel 39, because the heathen in the kingdom will be employed. All right, once again, and immediately, once New Jerusalem comes down out those ships, the elect coming out those ships via, salvation, the salvation of Yahawashi, starting with Yahawashi and King David and the government of Israel. All right, these heathens are going to be put in check in order to clean up the earth. Okay, they're gonna be ordered to clean up the earth. All right, the big ass mess of World War III that these nations is gonna pretty much cause. They're gonna be left to clean it up. All right, and once they clean the earth up, they're gonna get to building. All right, so this is Ezekiel 39, and let me see. Let me start at let me start at 7. It says in the NLT, it says Ezekiel 39:7. It says, "In all this way, I will make known my holy name among my people of Israel. I will not let anyone bring shame on it, and the nations too will know that I am Yahweh, the Holy One of Israel." All right. So this is after World War III. All right. Once America is destroyed and World War III takes place, all right. The result of World War III being that Israel is going to be victorious. All right. And this whole planet is going to be in shock when they see you know who the Lord is really dealing with, and the elect getting delivered, and the action, all those actions is going to cause even these heathen to know that, that name that those Hebrew Israelites, those prophets, you know uh was preaching, in particular, in Babylon, all right, America. That's that's the living power. That's the power that you know destroyed this America and the beast system. NATO and the EU. Taking down all these kingdoms. All right. Verse 9, it says, "Then the people in the towns of Israel shall go out and pick up your small and large shields, bows and arrows, javelins and spears, and they will use them for fuel." Let me read that. Actually, let me read. Now I'm gonna read. I'm gonna read it in KJV. It sounds better. Ezekiel 39:9. It says, "And they that dwell in the cities of Israel shall go forth and shall set on fire and burn the weapons, both the shields and the bucklers, the bows and the arrows, and the handstaffs and the spears, and they shall burn them with fire 7 years," which represents a complete amount of time. All right, so all these, uh, weapons that's going to be used during World War III are going to be gathered and destroyed. All right, and it's not going to be actual Israelites going and picking this shit up. It's going to be the heathens at the command of the Israelites that's going to go about picking this shit up. All right, verse 10, it says, "So that they shall take no wood out of the field, neither cut down any out of the forest, for they shall burn the weapons with fire, and they shall spoil those that spoil them, and rob those that rob them, saith the Lord Yahweh." All right, so we're going to pretty much pay back these heathens double for what they've done to us. All right, so that's going to be some laborers' work. All right, cleaning up, starting with the land of Israel itself, just cleaning up the land of Israel. That's going to be, it's not going to be no half-ass job that the heathen is going to be allowed to do in cleaning up, the land of Israel, and the whole world. Okay. Um, Let me see, verse 11. It says, "And it shall come to pass that in that day that I will give unto Gog a place there of graves in Israel." Okay, because you're actually going to have Gog being the Russians today, the so-called Russians. Actually, some of them is going to actually die, boots on ground, die in Israel. You know, you're going to have Russian troops at some point in time in the future actually have boots on ground in Israel, and they actually gonna die there. Okay, so that's why it says that there's gonna be a place given to them. Um, it's gonna be pretty much a graveyard. Dedicated to not necessarily in a good way, so to say, but it's gonna be a place in Gog in in the land of Israel where they're gonna be buried. All right, so it says that I will give unto Gog a place there of graves in Israel, the valley of the passengers of the east of the sea, and it shall stop the noses of the passengers. All right, so that stench is gonna be crazy. All them dead bodies. All right, that stench is gonna be outrageous. It says, and there shall they bury Gog and all his multitude. Okay, so until the last, the Russian is discovered and put into that grave, then that's when you know it's most likely gonna be a mass grave. All right, because the Lord ain't worried about oh, we gotta find this heathen's name and make a tombstone for him, and so his mother and father can come visit. On fucking Veterans Day or some shit. No, the Lord's not concerned about that. Get all these big head Edomites, throw them in the pit. That's the last one. Yep. All right, throw the dirt on them. All right. It says, and they shall call it the Valley of Hamongog. Then 7 months shall the house of Israel be burying of them, that they may cleanse the land. All right. So we're gonna have servants and slaves actually, burying these heathen. All right. And by doing that, the land of Israel is going to be cleansed. It says, yea, all the people of the land shall bury them, and it shall be to them a renown the day that I shall be glorified, saith the Lord Yahweh. And they shall sever out men of continual employment. Okay? Continual employment. All right? It's not going to be any ceasing to the work that's going to be needed to be done in the land of Israel. Okay? Passing through the land to bury with the passengers those that remain upon the face of the earth, to cleanse it. After the end of 7 months shall they search, and the passengers that pass through the land, when they see a man's bone, then shall he set up a sign by it, till the buriers have buried it in the valley of Hamongog. And also the name of the city shall be Hamona. Thus shall they cleanse the land. All right, so let's see what the Hamona is. Hamona. So like it's Hama Hamawana, and it means multitudes. The name of the city to be founded to commemorate the defeat of Gog. Okay. All right, so when you hear this name, it's gonna remind you that the Gogites or the Gog, the Russians was defeated. All right. Um, let me see. There's more, but that's pretty much the point. It's going to be a continual employment in the kingdom of heaven. All right, and just see is what we saw with King Solomon was, you know, continual employment, for not only Israelites but for also the heathens. All right, and that's not a bad thing. Okay, now in the kingdom of heaven, hey, just how on the left hand side you got the elite banking families. These so-called bloodlines, of the elite. And not just them. The other nations as well have bloodlines in which they pretty much don't do anything. They living good off of the power they have. All right, in the kingdom of heaven, us as Israelites in righteousness, we're gonna have that same power on top of. Well, I'll say we're gonna have more power than that. Salaki. All right, we're gonna have spiritual power. We're gonna have true power. All right, righteous power. It's not gonna be no wicked. The power that we're gonna have is not gonna be via wicked means. All right, it's gonna be all through you know righteousness. Okay, so with using that righteous power, all right, we're gonna have a righteous government in which everyone's gonna be gainfully employed. The heathen. Okay, and us as Israelite men, all right, off the back, we're gonna be a nation of kings and priests. All right, to officiate, the office as a priest, unto these other nations. All right. On top of that, being kings. So you got to see, the difference and the contrast of what a government in a nation looks like. When you have a wise king ruling and governing the people versus and that being King Solomon versus Donald Trump and this dumbass government that's about to collapse, here very soon. So I just wanted to, pretty much make that point. And it's 11:11 right now. And Abarazazah, brothers was edified with this. Till next time, I say shalom.